I'm reading this book, Startup Nation, the story of Israel's economic miracle. I'm in chapter 10, haven't finished the book yet, but a couple of questions came to my mind that I wanted to share with the online community before I forget them. The book itself is a business pitch about the Israeli economy, and I think it's a very good business pitch because it tells just the success story. As a reader, I had a problem with this kind of approach. Yes, the book's main aim is telling success stories because success sells. But as a reader, I do not learn much from that book, just from the success stories. Any kind of a success has a cost. And when we talk about a society, a nation, and every nation, every society has systems and cultural norms that reward those who fit very well into those systems, to the cultural norms, and exclude or does not reward equally those who do not fit very well into those cultural norms, into those kind of system. The author um, says that people who immigrated from Israel, they came from 90 different nations or nationalities. So, and we all know that between the nations, between the societies, there are gap, cultural gap, educational gap, let's say technological kind of a gap. So those kind of a gaps, when people come with those kind of a gaps into the society, certainly we can expect, if you have a system in place, cultural norms in place, some people get rewarded and fits very well and get integrated very well. Others remain behind. So as a reader, I'm interested not only in success story, but also people who remain behind, the reasons, the causes, because I learn from those kind of things. When you mention a problem, I think about the solutions. Other readers think of the solutions. Societies thinks of for those solutions, and it helps for the and it helps in progress, and people learn from those kind of things. So I thought it's essential to mention this. One of the reasons that I'm mentioning this question to the online community is because I'm not expert about the Israel, and I do not have much information about it. So people who have information, who have a deep understanding, they can fill the gap that the author of this book missed. Um, so let me quote what I mean, that the system in place does not reward equally, and some people get left behind. Um, in the chapter 7, the title is actually Immigration. On the page 123, in the book that I have, the author mentioned. So I'm going to quote the author. Uh, in the second last paragraph, the author says, the Ethiopian immigration has proven to be an enormous economic burden for Israel. Nearly half of Ethiopian adults aged 25 to 54 are unemployed, and majority of Ethiopian Israelis are on government welfare. So just remember those kind. So it's saying that nearly half of Ethiopian immigrants is not fitting very well into the system. Mula expects that even with Israel's robust and well-funded immigrant absorption programs, the Ethiopian community will not be fully integrated and self-sufficient for at least a decade. So there are programs that want to absorb these immigrants into the Israeli societies, but these programs are not working. So as a reader, I get an impression that yes, there are programs that trying to absorb these immigrants, but the system itself is set up as such, the cultural norms is set up as such, the people who come from the societies who are there, who have a gap, technological, educational, and all those kind of sort of gaps, they cannot fit very well into this system. So the systems do not have room, the cultural norms does not have room for these people, and this the reason they are struggling to let's say integrate. And also in the same chapter, the author mentions that there's Ethiopian immigrants underperforming in schools, and that's the reason they cannot go into the STEMS program of the public universities and private universities because it costs a lot. So they cannot also go to the private institutions, let's say universities. So they underperform in school, they cannot go into the STEMS programs, and also they cannot integrate into society. And there must be so from underperforming in school, from not being able to go into the STEMS program, it's one part of the problems become obvious. But what about the other parts of the are there any alternative programs? It mentions about the private absorptions programs too, but I think the system itself is set up as such that people who come from let's say third world countries or developing nations does not fit very well. So if the author elaborated and paid more attention on those aspects, I as a reader would learn a lot from it. It's just my suggestion, it's just my impression as a reader. Okay, before I move to the next question, I wanted to mention one more part, and that's there are 135,000 Israelis of Iranian origin. This is what Google tells me. But I'm in chapter 10, and I haven't seen one example of an Iranian immigrant's success story, or a company, or a startup by an Israeli of an Iranian origin. And as a reader, I was curious because to know what the reason is. The tension, the conflict between Iran and Israel is one example, or is it possible because the authors are trying to pitch the Israeli economy to the Western reader, to the Western leadership? They do not want to mention an Iranian success story, Iranian origin success story, because of the sensitivity, because of the sensitive nature of the topic. Just curious. If people, if the online community, some people know about this issue, I would really like to learn more. Okay, one more question that I have, that's about the cultural comparison that the author makes. The authors mentions two Asian societies like Singapore and South Korea. And they say Singapore and South Korea, people are really smart, they really like STEMs, they are good at math and sciences too, but they have not become a startup nation. And the reason author suggests is the cultural norm, the fear of losing face, because in Asian society, if you fail, you lose your face. You cannot face the society. The cultural, let's say the societal cost, the social cost of it is very, very high. And author suggests in comparison, the Israelis does not like, doesn't care about the social cost, and they really wanted to they take risks. If they fail, the society does not judge them, and cultural is such that they do not care too about the failure. They go start another startup. They so as a reader, I said, okay, it sounds good, it looks logical, it's a common sense to me, and it's very good example. But there is one thing missing, and that there is the historical explanation, the historic background, because as a reader, I believe that any society, any person, any population, any human population, they are the product of two things: the genetic mutation, yes, the evolution, I would say, and also their circumstances, their environment. It's true about plants, animals, and it's also true about the human population. So if you are not mentioning a historical background of these two, that as a reader I get an impression that there's a third force is involved in these things. Let's say uh, one society is probably blessed by some superior uh, power, let's say a superior being, and another society is not. So as a reader, I get those kind of impression if you do not mention a historical background to it. I might be expecting too much, but I'm just the reader, so I'm just mentioning my what the impression that I get. So the author does not mention, but I have to explain my impression. What's the historical background? The Asian nations uh, is a very ancient civilization. They are part of very ancient civilization, and their civilization has remained consistent. It did not go extinct, unlike Egyptian ancient Egyptian civilization. We know the ancient Egypt. They defeated Israelis and they enslaved them in the same way Babylon. It's hard to pronounce for me. So let's say the South Iraqi people who enslaved the Jewish people. And the stories are mentioned in the Bible. When you get defeated, I think when a people get defeated, they get humiliated, and when you get humiliated multiple times, when you are, let's say, persecuted time again and again and again by different nations and different times, slowly you lose the sense of the shame, losing the faith. So it's probably one of the reason that they ready to take risk, because if over thousands of years you got defeated multiple times, you got enslaved, you got persecuted, and opportunities are denied, so you take any kind of opportunity that's available, you take risk for those kind of opportunity. So that might be one of the reason. I might be wrong, but this is just a logical kind of a thinking when you look into a historical perspective, that these kind of cultural norms, this kind of a culture developed over thousands of years because of the kind of historical experiences that a nation go through. So one thing at one time becomes like let's say it's a disadvantage for you, but the same kind of disadvantage over a long period of time becomes an advantage for you. I think if author has presented his own rationale, it might be different from my rationale. Uh, we would learn a lot from it, and people would not get an impression of a kind of a superior being blessing one nation and not blessing another nation. It's just my impression. In comparison, the Asians like stability, and that's the reason their civilization survived for thousands of years. They, despite of world going through different kind of changes, so because of the for the most part of the Asian civilization, there were the dynasties and the monarchs who ruled over the Asian people, like China, like South Korea, like Japan. So people like monarchs and dynastic kind of rulers, they do not like opposition, and they one thing. So any kind of opposition, they just kill, they just remove from the society, and that's the reason people are very, very careful uh, when they want to express, when they bring some kind of innovation. And also the monarchs, the kind of rulers, they when they give an order, when they wanted something success, they do not like failure. They punish failure by death. So that's one of the reason. And also public shaming is also common, and that's the reason for if a society goes this kind of a process over thousands of years, it becomes a cultural norm. Even though the monarchs are gone, those kind of things gone, still um, losing face because of the failure has become a norms of the Asian society. It's just my, I think, what I let's say learn from the history. I might be wrong. It's just kind of explanation that I give for myself. So I think if the author mentioned these two aspects, the book would be very, let's say, I would learn a lot from this book. The book would be more colorful, more rich. Let's say there would people learn more lessons from it. Okay, just two questions. I had just those kind of those two questions for the online community. So I would really like to learn from other people's perspective, uh, if possible, the authors probably. Who knows? Uh, Thank you.